in custody after trying to climb a temporary fence near the White House this morning. A Secret Service spokesperson said the individual was quickly taken into custody for unlawful entry. The temporary fence is in place in preparation for the presidential inauguration next month. The Secret Service said that President Biden is spending the weekend there, but the individual did not breach the fence. The suspect is being processed by the Metropolitan Police in D.C. The Pacific Coast Highway is back open as crews increase containment of the Franklin fire. As of this morning, the fire is 35% contained and officials have rescinded all mandatory evacuation orders. At its peak, the fire prompted evacuation orders or warnings for around 20,000 Malibu residents. 19 structures have so far been confirmed destroyed since the blaze ignited on Monday. You're listening to the latest on NBC.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter. Think Theory Radio.
Dr. Hande Ozdinler, she is a neuroscientist, but also an artist.
It seems that the larger we go, like, the galaxy, the sky, and then also as small as we go, right? The nanostructures, the atomic interactions or cellular interactions, there is so much resemblance, like there is a secret or there is an unspoken symmetry.
Think Theory Radio with Damian Perdue. Saturdays at 6 p.m. on WCPT 820.
This is a WCPT 820 Heartland Signal News Minute.
Judging by what I've heard from my Republican colleagues, I think the odds of his being approved are still less than 50-50.
That's Senator Richard Blumenthal, Democrat of Connecticut, speaking to reporters in the Capitol about Pete Hegseth, Donald Trump's nominee to head the Department of Defense. Since Trump announced the pick, the former Fox News commentator has faced a barrage of accusations regarding his professional record, sexual conduct, and drunkenness.
I am hearing from Republican colleagues grave doubts about his ability to do this job in a way that upholds our national security. There are too many doubts, too many risks and threats to our national security from this appointment. I think my Republican colleagues are really deeply troubled.
For WCPT 820 and Heartland Signal, I'm Henry Edwards.
This is an important announcement for anyone who wants health insurance, even if you missed the deadline. Right now, you can get the health insurance you and your family need from top insurance providers, even if you have pre-existing conditions or no insurance at all. The Plus Benefits Health Insurance toll-free number has been extended to help anyone who wants health insurance coverage now, or if you need a better plan or a lower price. Call Plus Benefits Health Insurance now at 800-378-1388. The call is 100% free and the help is real. Call 800-378-1388. That's 800-378-1388.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
The following program, Collaboraction Radio, is sponsored by Collaboraction, and to the extent applicable, their guests. The views and opinions expressed therein do not necessarily reflect those of Heartland Signal, LLC, or its management.
Never gets old. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Collaboraction Radio. My name is Beverly Dines. I'm going to be your host today. And I hope you're having a lovely Saturday. It's cold outside, so wherever you are, I hope it's warm. You are listening to Collaboraction Radio at the intersection of art, activism, and social change. Thank you for joining us on WCPT 820 AM, Chicago's Progressive Talk Radio, and also streaming live on Facebook and WCPT.com. And if you can't stick around, you're going to be able to catch it next week on all the places that you can stream podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Collaboraction is a 28-year-old nonprofit whose mission is to build what we call KIDA, knowledge, empathy, dialogue, and action, around oppression and inequity through live theater, film, virtual content, and radio that leverage the power of storytelling and community to cultivate positive social change. And we'd be remiss if we didn't celebrate a few sponsors who through their championing of this work, enable us to do what we're able to do. So I'd like to start with Collaboration Radio being sponsored by the Joseph and Bessie Feinberg Foundation, Ruth Page Center for the Arts, Adler University, AV Chicago, and Olive Oak. Ruth Page's The Nutcracker returns to three locations this holiday season. Chicago's longest-running Nutcracker, where tens of thousands of people have loved the story of Clara and her Nutcracker for more than 50 years. Relive the magic of this beloved classic, first brought to life at Chicago's iconic Ari Crown Theater. Don't miss Ruth Page's The Nutcracker at Governors State University, at Northeastern Illinois University, and College of Lake County. And so the Governors State University performances have actually just passed, but you can still catch it. You can still catch it at the College of Lake County on December 21st and 22nd. So celebrate the season with Ruth Page's The Nutcracker. Tickets are at ruthpage.org. Adler University is dedicated to advancing social justice and equipping students to lead purposeful lives through its innovative academic programs rooted in the legacy of Alfred Adler, a pioneer of community psychology, with campuses in Chicago, Vancouver, and online. Adler University fosters a diverse, inclusive learning environment where students gain the skills to become socially responsible practitioners, engaging communities to improve health and well-being. Discover how Adler University empowers students to make a meaningful impact in the world. Today's episode is sponsored by AV Chicago, Chicago's leading provider of AV production and management services, and Olive Oak. Olive Oak is a purpose-driven destination and event management company that seeks to become a trusted strategic ally to your business as they delight your audience and generate impactful outcomes. Visit oliveoak.com to learn more and schedule a meeting with their team. After our show today, if you feel impassioned and want to join the conversation, Collaboration Radio is made possible by donors and members like you. So please, please, please email radio@collaboration.org, or you can go to www.collaboration.org to learn more. We've got quite a few exciting updates. We recently celebrated our season of annual giving on Giving Tuesday in collaboration with Lottie Vidney. I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that again, just because they really opened up their space to us, where we unveiled 2 of our Emmy Awards from Trial in the Delta, as well as launched the book for the stage play for Trial in the Delta. And so awesome folks in our community who've been champions of our work were able to come and see the unboxing, and also purchase some of the stage plays for themselves and get them signed, because a few cast members were there and the playwrights were there as well. So that was exciting, and you can still give. It's not too late. If you have not yet, and maybe you've listened to us for a while and you don't quite know how to get involved, no amount is too small. We are champions for the community, and so if you'd still like to get involved, please, please, please head to our website where you can donate in any amount, or you can become a member for as little as $1 a month. And as we can open up our space in Humboldt Park, there's going to be really exciting membership opportunities that will be curated to cultivate a really strong group of what we call Collabor activists to further development and community engagement. Tomorrow is a really special event, and we have a lovely guest who's sitting next to me who's going to talk a little bit about that today, as well as her experience. And so I want to emphasize that tomorrow is Chicago's 12th National Vigil for victims and survivor families of gun violence. Please join us, because Collaboration will be present. Come together to remember the 8,400 plus victims of gun violence in Chicago since 2012, and to honor the Sandy Hook and Highland Park victims, most notably for this particular vigil. Together we can end gun violence. And if you've listened to us for a while, You might have heard our Strides for Peace episode where we brought our incredible collaborators from that team. There are folks on the ground who are #honoring with action. And so if you want to be a part of that, you can attend the event tomorrow at Augustana Lutheran Church of Hyde Park. That's Augustana Lutheran Church of Hyde Park tomorrow at 6 p.m. The flyer is available on our website, and we hope to see you in community for that event as well. Finally, on January 4th, Nick Tremulis and the Prodigals are premiering Boneyard Rhapsody at Metro. Proceeds from this show will go towards Collaboraction's new youth music education program that will be announced during the event. And so for more information, please head to the Metro website to get your tickets. To learn more, please head to our website as well to see what we're doing and how we're continuing to expand offerings for youth development and an acceleration of not only their artistic expression, but also their education as well. If you are listening live, you can call in and chat with us at 773-763-9278 if you have any questions or things you want to share with us in relation to the topic. Hi, Mary.
Hello.
So I am joined today by Mary Stonor Saunders, and she is she's a senior executive overseeing the McCormick, Irving Park, and Lakeview community hubs for YMCA of Metropolitan Chicago. Mary brings over 25 years of experience from the for-profit and not-for-profit sector, with substantive expertise in strategy, community engagement, program development, fundraising, collaboration, with a central theme being relating to her commitment to equity, authentic relationships, and proximity, stressing the value and neighborly intersectionality to move forward together as a community. Before joining the YMCA, Mary served as the policy director at Common Cause Illinois, where she worked to engage people not typically around the policy table in advocacy efforts, leading their state and local policy initiatives. Prior to that, she served as the inaugural executive director of Strides for Peace, we love a callback, whose mission is to create a Chicago where all can thrive free from the fear of gun violence by increasing the collective impact of community organizations and providing new pathways for folks who care to get involved. Before that, Mary served as Director of Strategy and Development for BUILD, a Chicago gang intervention, violence prevention, and youth development organization. And she began her career in Washington, D.C., where she worked in association fundraising and development. In 1990, she joined the Washington Post, and she came to Chicago in 1996 to pursue a graduate degree and she's held planning and programmatic development positions for La Rabida Children's Hospital, Action for Illinois Children, and the University of Chicago.
I'm old.
I'm so experienced. Most recently, Mary relaunched Granola for Good, a social enterprise that aims to raise the profile of nonprofit partners, and she developed the Grow Chicago Collaborative in 2014 to give emerging food manufacturers a voice around the policy table. She is a self-proclaimed proud mother, humble volunteer, cat whisperer, and I'd really love to learn more about that, mountain lover, and avid beer aficionado. Mm-hmm. And if you go to her Instagram, this mama loves beer, right? When she sent me the email, I was like, oh my gosh. I'm
serious.
She is quite literally an aficionado. So, a woman of many gifts and talents. And thank you so much for making time. Of course.
Lovely to meet you.
Oh my goodness. Same. Can we not hear?
Oh, we
lovely
have to hear you.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Got it.
So I just want to start off by asking, how are you?
Well, I feel like I'm a yo-yo because there's these moments, especially after the last election, but also not just the election, all the things leading up to it, where we've seen people struggling, people not being heard, people being separated, and then this last election. And that weighs very heavy on the heart. I'm someone who likes to bear witness, and so I've been very vigilant, especially from my Washington Post days, of paying attention for the last 8 years. So I feel exhausted like so many by that and want to pace myself. But the yo-yo part is when I step outside and I walk into community and I connect to people who aren't talking about what they want to do but are doing what they want to do, mostly because they don't have a choice, right? Because they have to live.
Right.
I feel really inspired. So it's a yo-yo. I feel really tired and concerned and terrified, and I feel really hopeful and inspired all at the same time. And we'll see where this pendulum goes over the next however many years.
Yes, and I thank you. I'm really glad you mentioned pendulum, because a consistent theme that I've shared on the show has been around society kind of oscillates between these states of social progression and community engagement. And I feel like in light of recent events, we're seeing a pretty dramatic transition of folks kind of deciding that through their exhaustion, you know, what is going on? Like, enough is enough. And as we've seen, of course, from certain healthcare individuals who are no longer with us, and the reaction to that. There's a huge push right now for silencing. We saw the TikTok ban and their emergency filing to save that platform has been disabled, and effectively will be losing that platform. And a lot of folks are starting to ask questions about, you know, why can't we come together as a community and have these dialogues? And so to just further emphasize the point, I really appreciate you talking too about there are people on the ground who are active because they have to live, and the exhaustion that comes also with feeling as though you don't have choice is pervasive, especially in Chicago, with the variety of intersectional issues that we navigate. I'd love to learn from you, what was the catalyst for you to feel called to this work? As the audience, you know, listeners kind of heard me go through a robust and colorful career and continuing to evolve career around social change. What was that catalyst for you?
You know, I've been asked this question before, and I think it's just always been inside me. I'm someone who is fortunate enough to have kind of a passport to a lot of places, even though I don't have one particular home. Just my upbringing in New York City in the 60s and 70s, where you couldn't step outside your door and not know that there were a gazillion people who didn't look like you, who didn't necessarily have your lived experience, but we were all sharing the same space. My mother came from an old American family that had been here for multiple generations all the way back. My father was a 29-year-old Armenian refugee Palestinian born in Jerusalem, who left in 48 and then came to Beirut, where my parents met when she was on a cruise. Wow. I grew up in the city, New York City, but I spent all my summers in a town of 700 where I still have friends and my first loves. So I've always had this ability to kind of travel between different sort of places. Some considered very status and high and erudite, and some like down and dirty, but all of them have the same humanity, same insight, same brilliance and intelligence, if you have access enough and open heart enough to listen and care. And that's one thing I do think we really have to talk about, is how we change the world if we only talk to people who agree with us. How do we, like, you know, expand that? But in terms of gun violence specifically, you know, I have a very distinct memory when it really came to the fore, and Arnie Duncan was the superintendent of Chicago Public Schools, and people may not remember, or they might be too young to have known, but he really was one of the first outspoken people about young children getting killed on their way to and from school, and nobody giving a shit.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing him on CNN and starting to agree. And back then, it wasn't part of the national dialogue. It was a political third rail. When Clinton and Obama ran against each other, they didn't mention gun violence at all. So I started kind of as a one-person sort of like looking for some way to connect to a community who cared about ending gun violence. And then this guy named Charles, who worked at a restaurant in Hyde Park, got killed. And he had 5 kids. He had left for vacation. He got in a fight with someone. That person came back, shot him dead. There was like one sentence in the newspaper. So then I started a journey saying, you know what, man, there's one sentence about this man who meant so much to so many people, to these 5 children, to the people who loved him, and he gets one sentence. That's not right. And so it spurred me on to continue this. And then when D'Antonio Goss in 2010 got killed, the second day of school, 14-year-old, okay, his father was a block away, I decided to try to remember the name of every child who got killed in Chicago. And I couldn't, because too many were getting killed. And that just sort of led to slowly like connecting to people, and then Sandy Hook happened and Moms Demand Action was started, and there became sort of these forums or venues where you could connect to people. But it really wasn't until I probably did the work at Build Chicago, where I was like in the middle of the Austin neighborhood with kids coming in every day, knowing kids who had lost somebody the day before and they're still showing up for school because they need some place to be held. That was when I got much more deeper into the proximity of what's happening on not just me from afar, reading about a kid who's getting killed or listening to Arnie Duncan getting killed, but to like actually step into the communities where this is happening and having relationship with people who have to live and think about this every day.
I want to zero in on proximity. Because, you know, one of the things that you mentioned was, not only just being in and having exposure to, but there's a desensitization around the repeat violence that we're shown. And going all the way back to you sharing that your exposure to folks who are different from you, to diversity, there is a perception that, it's a Chicago problem. So if you're outside the city, right, or if you're coming in for tourism or anything like that, it's there's this a dissonance sometimes of, folks who are coming in, enjoying, and then kind of removing themselves, versus folks who are like, well, wait. In order for us to have a robust ecosystem around Chicago and Chicago in general, like everyone needs to feel safe. It can't just, these pockets can't 100%. Just. And so I guess my question to you is, why do you feel like that dissonance exists beyond racism and redlining and everything else we know, for you.
Just those little things.
Those casual things. I think more specifically, though, for you having gone in with Build and seeing firsthand the impact, and we spoke a little bit before the show about community impact, whether you are a direct survivor or a community survivor of gun violence. What do you think? Why do you think the aversion to empathy is resonant?
I think there's so many reasons why, not to mention all those, lovely things about America that we're still struggling to get to the other side of. Sure. I think it's about love. I think it's two things. I think when there's a lot of people who are comfortable checking boxes or being righteous about ideas but don't want to have to change their lives in any way. And just real quickly to Brian Stevenson, the most amazing, I think he's going to win a Nobel Peace Prize, author of Just Mercy, but more so a Supreme Court attorney who fights for people on death row and overturned the Supreme Court decision that children can't be incarcerated without parole, is inhumane. But the 4 ways to change the world is to get close to the problem, to prepare to be uncomfortable, to change the narrative, and to have hope. And so I think there's this part of where people, there's a whole thing about bearing witness. And to be fair to people, if you look at something and it breaks your heart and you can't do anything, you feel overwhelmed, and so you start choosing to turn away. So I think one of the things that's really important is giving people a pathway, that they don't have to start at the most sort of woke area, but give them a pathway to move forward in their level of understanding and engagement. But I think ultimately things come down to love. And what I mean by that is love is what fuels us to fight for change. Okay? Love is romantic love. Love can make us angry when it breaks our heart. Love can inspire. Love can do all sorts of things. But we only fight for what we love. And what happens is, because there isn't proximity, people can look at a number, they can look at a name, they can look at a face that doesn't look like them or a block that doesn't look like theirs, and not feel that that's a full human being. And proximity, my going into community, especially during the pandemic where there were so many frickin' heroes, I can't even name them. We started, when I was at Strides, a thing called Choose Hope to try to highlight them, these short mini films, is to have relationship matters. And what you realize, it's not just that they need to be saved. We need them because there's so much talent and brilliance and resilience, and our world will suffer without them. And so I think that's part of changing that narrative or that understanding. Oh, I'm not a savior going down there. Every time I go down, roll up my sleeves and say, how can I help? Or develop a friendship from somebody who is saving lives while I'm, sitting, having a beer with my husband, right? The deep admiration and insight and respect I have is not me helping them, it's them helping me. And I think that's sort of where we have to turn things around, especially in the philanthropic world where there's this very sort of unilateral kind of thing. When I was at Build, I said, don't say we're getting resources to make young people more productive in society. I'm like, I don't want to talk about that ever again, because it sort of others people, and we have to stop othering each other.
Well, and that in of itself is a privilege, right? Of you're receiving access to resource so you can continue to be a part of the broken system versus like let's heal the system, and it should be yes and, because it's their true liberation in this context is all children, regardless of where you're from, are able to go to school without having to worry if they're going to walk back home. Like it's in that and of itself is a privilege. Something that you mentioned about kind of the lofty, boots to the ground, for lack of a better term, like woke activism, and then all of the space that exists in between. Within the constant saturation, whether that be on social media or be in the news, of all of the things that are going wrong per se, like I keep seeing videos and pictures of drones now everywhere, and like all kinds of things, right? One of the pieces that you mentioned around love, and what I really love about art and theater, and how it immediately creates a sense of unified connection because we're all sitting here together and having this shared experience. I want to ask you about the power of spontaneous connection through art. In August of this year, you were walking down the street, and there was a gentleman named J.P. Bader who was playing the piano, I believe.
Oh, you saw that.
I did see that. And he was playing what he called a drive-by piano, where he was going around Chicago and playing music. And Mary was featured very briefly in an article about his artistic way of connecting folks. And you sat down and you played a few things with him, and then, shared your perspective. What was that like for you in that spontaneous moment to interact with him, interact with art, and I saw other pictures of families coming together and playing at the piano. Maybe describe your experience with just that simplicity of buying in for that moment and connection with another person through art.
Well, I love it. I have so much to say about it more generally, but I love that you read that. You could do your homework, girl. So, props to that. To me, we walk around and I'm a self-confessed Virgo. I'm a Virgo Libra.
Moon.
I'm a Virgo Libra wannabe is what I want to be. Because all my girlfriends growing up were Libras, and they were always late, and there were no cell phones. We walk around, and I think it actually ties into what I was just talking about, like how we think about problems, and we think about problems, right? And we sort of analyze, but we have to feel them, and we have to experience them as human beings to make progress on it. And so you're walking down the street in your course of your day, and you've got your thinky brain on, and your Virgo brain, or your right, whatever side of the brain that's the analytical one, and you come across this man with a piano, and first it's just delight. It's just some brightness in your day. Then you're shy. I'm not a performer like you. And it's like, well, no, I'm going to do something that's a little risky. I'm going to step outside. So then there's a little bit of that going on. But then even deeper, I was playing Chopsticks or Heart and Soul. I was playing Heart and Soul. I haven't played Heart and Soul in ages. And all of a sudden that muscle and that emotional memory goes back, and it takes me to a place of childhood. And from that place of childhood where we're not so constrained by the shoulds and the shouldn'ts and the woulds and the wouldn'ts, and we just are, and we're being, and then all sorts of things open up. And I think that's true, like from a oops, my bells are ringing. I think that's true from like a physical, like it's good for our health, but for our spirit, it's so important to feed our spirits. And so it's feeding our spirits. That's part of resilience, and it's part of exploration and openness to other things.
I love that because it's specifically the going about your day. I mean, think about how many times you're walking, whether it be the blue line, the purple, the red, the pink, and whatever the case, and there's folks that are performing on the street, and you're heading to wherever you have to go. And I purposefully will, if I know I have a little bit of a window, I will try my best to even pause for a moment to acknowledge that they're there and
100%.
And the artistry that is there, because you don't know who you're walking in front of, and you don't know the artist that you're seeing. And so I guess you said you had some other like thoughts about that more generally. I'd love to maybe continue to pick your brain on the continuation of the because it really is what you're saying is regulation. It's re-regulation and regrounding. Because in that moment, right, there's so many things that are going through your head. And you pause, just the pause for a moment is grounding. Oh, that's really cool. And then to give yourself the gift of stepping towards the piano, allowing yourself the opportunity to play. For those who are listening, when was the last time you allowed yourself truly the opportunity to play? And not play through the confines of, I went to a concert, or I, read a book that I really like, but like truly to echo about the most earnest version of yourself, which was often your youngest version. When was the last time you truly got to play? Please call in 773-763-9278. Because I think about that in relation to the gaps in empathy in our community, because we're so dysregulated as a society. And so I'd love to hear more about where you have seen the power in the stripping of all of these confines and what that can do to bridge gaps.
Right, and I, because I'm not a glass half empty, but I'm half Armenian, so I've got a lot of angst. To take your thing of play, I think the same thing happens on the other side, which is pain.
Oh, sure.
Right, and if I can tell you just a little story, I'll try to do the fast version of it. But it was my first year with Strides for Peace, and there was an organization that we were sponsoring from Boston about young leaders, and he was coming to have a conversation with an artist, and that artist was Yo-Yo Ma. And this was at Granger Hall in the Symphony Hall, and it was a beautiful day. It was 2 days after we had done the Race Against Gun Violence. I was exhausted. I didn't really want to be sitting inside, and it's kind of cranky anyway, and I sat in the front, and I love Yo-Yo Ma. And this organization, which does really good work, they made the mistake of, instead of having somebody the same year that Laquan McDonald had been killed, they had a woman from Pittsburgh come in to talk about her work writing about her father's PSTD from the service. That's a great cause, but it's like we're in Chicago, we're having a really particular moment in Chicago about these issues. Why, so I was getting kind of cranky. Yeah. And then the conversation, which was all right, was kind of like, it was about your process, my process, but it wasn't talking about what was happening outside the doors at all. And so at the end, I raised my hand and I asked a question. And I said, are you saying that art gives a space for people, to feel different emotions they might not if they were just thinking about things, whether it's literature or music or whatnot. And I said, because I think when we try to solve problems, a lot of us want to feel good. Yay, look at us, we're solving the problem. Woohoo, and you go on a website and everybody looks really happy. And I said, but sometimes we need to feel bad. Yes. And sometimes we need problems to fix us, not just us fix problems. And I said, I got to tell you a little story. And I said, my daughter went to, Chicago Public Schools in 7th grade. She had this kid. She had her first crush and her academic rival, because he was even smarter than she was. And they had this little relationship. They separated different schools in middle school, but she always paid attention to him. because she knew he was going to do something awesome. He went to college, went with his high school girlfriend, played football, came back and was teaching kids on the south side of Chicago how to do math. And I said, I need you to know that 2 days ago, Xavier was killed 1 block from the University of Chicago police, 2 blocks from his home where he is loved. He was killed for his cell phone while he was talking to his girlfriend. Xavier Joy. Mm-hmm. And he was loved. And we need to look at him and we need to feel bad. We need to feel bad. Mm. And then the room was silent because I kind of, a little bit of a Debbie Downer there, right? And the guy from the Boston organization, like, okay, thank you. So we're going to be kind of closing up now. And then Yo-Yo Ma said, wait.
Oh, wow.
And he said, I'm really sorry for that loss. And he asked his manager to bring him his cello. And he said, Casal was the greatest cellist of his time. His last performance was Golda Meir in Jerusalem. She said, play me something for peace. Today I play that same piece for Xavier Joy. And he started playing that piece with tears streaming down his eyes. And I will tell you, and I've met people 1 year afterwards who recognized me from that conversation, and they said it changed them. It changed their cells. So that was the music that came in afterwards, and the profundity of connecting this boy that most people never heard of to one of the greatest leaders, right? How interconnected we all are, and how it's okay to feel bad if you want to change the world.
Wow. I'm going to let it hang in the air for a minute. What a powerful, powerful story. And it makes me think about my involvement in Collaboraction, because you said you're a Virgo? Mm-hmm. I'm a Libra, Sun, Virgo, Moon, so we'll chat.
I'm the best friend.
And I've shared this story on Collaboration Radio before, so I'll be quick in that. It doesn't take much to be empathetic, because we've all felt the same feelings, just in different contexts. Mm-hmm. And what you did in that moment is zero in on what we, as a society, we push away bad feelings. Mm-hmm. And we are told that bad feelings are uncomfortable and they don't have space, and it's not political and it's not okay, and you can't. I remember, having early in my career, having former supervisors say, as I was an early manager and looking for best practice and looking how to support my teams, tell me, Beverly, the best thing that you can do is tell, we have to have positivity always in the workplace. So leave it at the door. And I said, well, that's not how we work. You're going to carry what you experience in, as long as you have the right spaces to be professional. No. Positivity always. I'm but ultra positivity is unnatural, and
toxic positivity.
Yes. On a lot of youth activists are calling it dishonest harmony.
Ooh,
and I have been using this a lot recently, because it's so rich in that it's, why are we at the pizza party and, someone just lost their mom, but they know if they don't go there and laugh and smile that they may not get promoted. It's those things. And so sitting in that very quickly, when I first became exposed to Collaboration through a screening of Trial in the Delta at the Wayfair Theater in Highland Park. And for being a longtime resident of Highland Park, and then originally from the northwest suburbs, in predominantly white, predominantly very wealthy neighborhoods, I was sitting in this space where, we've just finished Trial in the Delta, and there's folks who are folks of color who are giving tales, because we always end our shows with crucial conversations, and they're sharing and sharing, and I'm seeing the eyes glaze over. Whether it's intentional or not, I'm seeing folks on their phone. I'm seeing some and I'm seeing it happen. And so I stand up and I say, I just want to clarify for the room. Can you please raise your hand if you are from this area or from the surrounding suburbs? And most of the folks raised their hands. And then I said, can you please keep your hands up if you or someone was directly impacted or nearby during the Highland Park shooting? And I could see the kind of the shifty eyes and what is she getting at? And I said, you do not have to empathize with how racial violence or gun violence or any of those things as you're hearing these stories, these conversations and community engagement is not about making you feel bad about situations you weren't a part of or systems that you did not create. And I think that's something that is often conflated of like, I didn't have slaves, so like, why am I the amount of times I've heard that on TikTok, it's like, I'm not a racist, so, but it's yes. And what's next from that, right? It's not enough to just like say you have friends of all different shapes and sizes and creeds. It's like, and so I shared with the group, I want you to take a moment to remember how you felt on that day. Just sit in it. And Anthony gives a great, because again, I had not heard about Collaboraction before this event, and Anthony was behind me, I guess, and he was like, "Who is this woman? Like, what is going on?" Because I was standing, and I think it's on film or it's on. There's pictures of me doing it, and I said, "Okay, I want everyone to sit with that feeling. For those of you who are feeling anger, sadness, hopelessness, frustration, anxiety, I want you to magnify that and then roll it over about 100 times, and that is the experience of folks who are marginalized identities in this country. And now that you've sat in that feeling, now we're connected, now we're community." And I saw, similarly to your story, you know, people going like, oh, like you know, oh, right. Yeah. And afterwards, folks coming up, and I share that story so frequently, and I'm so glad you shared that one, because that's truly the key. It is art brought us together in that room. We were there to watch the staging of this innovative play that Collaboraction had created, and folks were left. I mean, people were approaching me in the lobby saying, like, I felt bad, of course, and it really didn't resonate with me until you had me think about it in my context. And I think there's a misappropriation with kind of selfishness of self, and that, you know, because so many other folks have stuff going on, you know, I mentioned the Perfect Survivor a lot in community engagement events that I support, of like, your feelings are valid. There's not an oppression Olympics, right? Like if you've heard, like if you've had hurt before, you've had hurt before, and we all can relate to that. So I really appreciate you sharing that, and I think that the tie-in of art and social change relation to gun violence, I want to make sure there's space to talk about the vigil tomorrow, right? And there's a quote that you stated back in 2020 during the pandemic, where you said, "The pandemic has really created a window of empathy and understanding in the philanthropic community and the government community. The community organization or the people receiving funding on the front lines know what's best for their community." Following the pandemic, I feel like we've been more separated than ever, and yet organizations like Strides for Peace, like Moms Against Gun Violence, like so many are really doing the work to pull folks together, like for this vigil, where the power of presence, just being together in space. And I pulled that quote because I loved the concept of the window of empathy. So we've spoken here around feeling it yourself. There's a lot of folks, because of inequity relating to mental health care, relating to trauma and other things, that folks may not even have the tools to truly feel their feelings. So the windowing of sitting in proximity is so powerful. And I wanted to maybe ask you your perspective on why tomorrow is so important, and yet why are we having a 12-1?
Well, those are two. The why we're having the 12th one is a really long conversation. Sure. And we shouldn't be having a 12th one. And we don't have to have a 12th one. But why it's so important tomorrow is, it kind of goes back to me when you say like the window of empathy, is, you know, in addition to wanting to feel good, we also want to think we have an answer, right? We can solve a problem. And when we don't have an answer to that problem, and gun violence is one of those problems because it's so multifactorial, right? You know, it could be, it has to do with gun policy laws, it has to do with inequity and poverty, it has to do with, so many different aspects, intersectional aspects of our society, right? And so we go, we can't do anything about it, really, right? And then we get into factions of, safety versus, the police state, and then it gets more and more complicated. And I think the thing is before we start with what the answer is, right, because it is complex, it goes back to that thing of being in a space where you don't have the answer, but you experience what the impact of the problem and what it means. And you humanize the toll. And so when you go and you look across, and when you come to the vigil tomorrow, this is Chicago, this is the south side of Chicago. Most of the families there are going to be black and brown. You're not going to see a lot of families that have lost in Chicago who look like me. But you'll see people there in presence, in humility, to say, I don't know how to talk to you if your son was killed. What can I say to you? Right. I can't. But you know what I can do? I can look at you. I can hug you. I can I'm getting teary right now thinking about it. I can let you know I care. And I can't tell you the humility I feel about how much that means to people who've lost. And the world goes on. And it goes on, and it's not in the paper. Like I said, Charles, who got shot in Hyde Park, one sentence. Most of these people don't even get a sentence. Right. So you go and you just experience that community, and it starts changing you. Not your mind. It's changing you on a cellular level. It's that window that opens up, and then it starts changing your being. And then that, in turn, changes how you think and what you're willing to push through when someone says, we can't end gun violence. There's like 9 gazillion billion guns out there in the world, or Second Amendment, So I think that's why the vigil is so important, and the humility. And you see elected officials, you see, faith leaders, you see performers like you see people like me who are kind of nobody, but come there as a vigil to pay respects. And I think that's really, really important. But I think in terms of solving the problem, right, and getting there, is having, one of the things I think we've done really poorly on the other side, we're getting a little better. The side that wants to have everybody have 900 million guns, they took the Constitution, the bald eagle, the American flag, and the word freedom. That's how they lobbied. And we said, common sense. Come on, guys, please. We don't really want to take your guns. Common sense. And they're like, America, freedom. No, I want my freedom back. I want my freedom. You want your freedom back. I want my freedom back to not be afraid, not just for myself, but for my neighbor, that kid who lives down the street. And so this, to me, the vigil, which is one of honor and respect, is also one that provides the emotional fortitude and impetus to fight. Because that's what these moms are doing. And I want to say one other thing, and I know I'm talking a lot, but I guess it's a talk show, so hopefully that's okay.
That's why we're here. Please.
But the moms and the activists I see on the ground who do this 24/7, and there should be another thing. It should be like 36/10. I mean, they don't stop. They're fueled by love, and they have such pain, and they have trauma. But they also have joy. It's the other side of that. And so tomorrow when you go, there will be tears, and there will be hugs, and there will be sorrow. And then at the end, you're going to see people hugging and laughing, because that resilience is what gets them through. And I am just in such admiration. I didn't understand it when I was like, oh, I'm supposed to just be really sad. And then I saw the joy that they bring to the work, because that's how they keep going. The love that they have in their hearts for the people they've lost and the people they don't want to be lost. So it's this beautiful, powerful paradox of unrelenting pain and just unrelenting persistence and joy. It's incredible.
I want to ask you about, because one of the main tenets of Collaboraction's work is and we're building our house of belonging in Kimball Arts Center, where the purpose is that wherever you are in your journey, or you're just beginning your journey, or you're like, you know what, I want to be a better neighbor and I don't know how to start, you can kind of come to these spaces and our community partners with us and learn how. What would be your feedback or call to action to people who hear you, and I am even positive folks who may listen to this and go, that is really, really sad. Probably not going to go to the vigil. But, I like,
sorry.
it's like, I'm really, that's really sad though. And I learned a little bit more, but, it's just a little woo. Just a little woo. And I have got work on Monday. For those folks that are like, I would love to be a better neighbor, but do I really like it incarnate? What would you say to those folks who want to, and also again that discomfort that you mentioned at the very beginning of this of how do we bring folks in to those spaces who have the privilege of getting to pick and choose how they involve their activism or even their community engagement at the base level, right? Community is knowing thy neighbor, right? And so what is your, maybe ask her your statement to those folks who are maybe listening to us now and being like, what's for dinner tonight? I was going to go to Mom's place in River and then maybe Tao after. What do you say to those folks?
Well, I'm going to say it's okay, and we got to start somewhere. One of the brilliant things that when Maggie originally founded Strides for Peace, but then we really sort of blew up by expanding the way that the race against gun violence was bringing people from 300 zip codes, 36% richest, 32% poorest. They're going downtown, safe space, neutral ground. It's not like, I'm going to go from Highland Park to Roseland. Right. I mean, it's a safe, neutral kind of territory. And some neighborhood people would be like, why can't you have it on the south side? I said, because we want to have people downtown. But we want people to see you. Because there's all these people who aren't going to come if we do it there. So we want people to see you. And you get them there, and then you provide these ways to interact, right? And that's where arts comes in. We had a Why I Run banner where people could write about, I run because my brother got killed. I run because I love children. I run because, all these different reasons. We would have Greg Zanis who made the crosses when people died. And we'd have 500 crosses with hearts. And so people could look and see the crosses, and these represent people who've been killed. Then we had, the last time it was live when I was involved, we had the Chicago, the Civic Orchestra come and perform one of the songs that was written by the mom. So you're standing there and you're listening and you're thinking what's going on? Now I'm listening to the violin and this opera star singing this song and this mother standing holding, but you're feeling it. Then you see kids running the kids' tot lot. Then Vic Mensa gets up and sings We Could Be Free, which I think is one of the most brilliant songs and should be an anthem. And then all of a sudden you're like, where am I? And you're standing next to a kid who lives in the neighborhoods where people are getting killed, and you see the smile and the beauty of this person. And then you're running along downtown, and you're looking at this lake and the skyline, and you're running, and then you come back, and some young men get up, and they perform an original song that they wrote in Bronzeville, and this is more of this talent that we're going to lose if we don't get our act together and stop killing people. And then everyone's dancing side by side. And so you've approached it not in a way of, this is how you should feel, this is how you should think, but let us just have an experience and move along. And the understanding is not when you think or resist, it's just the touch, the seeing, the feeling, and art provides that space to do it without getting afraid.
I could talk to you for hours. Oh my gosh. I just, and I hope that folks who are listening can feel a tenth of just the eminence and passion that I am feeling from you, and the earnestness, and that these are palpable experiences. I don't have to be there. I'm feeling it from your empathy and from your experience. And I love you saying it's okay. So I think a big barrier of entry for folks to be involved, to feel like they can be a part of it, is, again, it's this pointing of fingers of here are all your privileges, here's all the ways that you've met, your ancestors have met, here's all the ways that you benefit from, you're a bad person. And so people are like, well, if I'm a bad person, then I'll probably be doing more damage than actually being there. And instead, it's I know a lot of folks from where I grew up in the northwest suburbs of Illinois who love a turkey trot. And they love a good Cocoa Classic, and they love a good run. And so if it starts with just showing up to do what you love, which is to run, and then you meet other people who can connect with you and you can connect with them, I just really appreciate that you gave space to that, because sometimes it truly is as simple as showing up with people who like to do what you do. And I think circling back to you talking about the vigil and the emphasis of joy, because in the community, especially in the news and in the media, it's constant negativity around the realities of gun violence, and zeroing in on joy and going all the way back to the beginning of the interview where you expressed vulnerably your exhaustion.
Yeah.
This mama loves beer.
She's going to have some tonight.
Yes, and she whispers to cats, and she loves art. I wanna know, for the last couple of minutes of the show, how are you pouring into yourself and self-caring through these interests or others as you continue to do the work while validating the real exhaustion that it comes with? Maybe talk about your passion for beer. I think I also saw something about beef in there too.
No,
it was beer.
Yeah, I'm vegetarian.
No, I did not. It was vegan beef. It was vegan beef. And so maybe talk about that.
Yeah, I don't know if I figured that out yet, but I'm trying to get a little better. I literally thought I had to bear witness to every single hearing in Congress the last 8 whatever years, and so I'm taking more of a break and I'm bringing music back in to my life, which is really good. I did a resilience retreat with people who worked around gun violence, and one of the things everyone talked about was how music freed their soul, right? So doing some of that.
What are you listening to?
Everything, but classical to some of my old, like Joan Armatrading, or the things I can sing along with, and even a little Joni Mitchell, but then some funk, just like some of the stuff, more of that sort of muscle memory kind of music. I'm not doing new music. It's sort of like grounding myself back into myself. And I do think when you listen to, like, even Bach, like you just, there's no reference point. It's just ethereal, and you're in there in this abstract. And so trying to give my mind a break with that. I'm recovering from a broken leg, a broken knee. So I'm starting to get back out. And I can tell you the one thing that I really love about Chicago is that horizon. Taking in the horizon, and then making time for some friends. So, yeah. What are you doing?
I think I'm also figuring it out. In the passion for the work, right? You do have to. You can very quickly burn out because of how there's so many things to do, and there's so much to be a part of that you kind of look up and you're like, how can you possibly do it all? And I think for me, I'm also a big music person. I recently remodeled, and by remodeled I mean went to Burlington Coat Factory and got really cute like little things to put on the walls. Like, let's level set here. But I got candles and bath bombs, and I'm trying to get back into a habit of grounding myself in the evenings with just a bath and a shower and music, just to make sure I start the next day feeling a bit more present of self. And then a community with my friends. I recently spent a jam sesh with some of my dear friends, and it was very simple. We were just sitting around, not really trying to go anywhere with the music, just strumming and humming and singing and whatever, and then talking vulnerably about how we're navigating. We're all in different industries, all over the place, just sitting with friends. And at the end of it, one of my good friends was like, why aren't we doing more of this? And we said, you know what, why aren't we doing more of this? And so allowing ourselves the opportunity to just sit in together with no end, no goal. There's nothing to do at the end of it but just be. Just be. And so I think I'm looking for more spaces to just be in community with incredible personalities like yourself. And as we close out, maybe you mentioned earlier a song that you feel, I just want you to say it again, a song that you feel should be an anthem.
Vic Mensa's We Could Be Free.
Vic Mensa's We Can Be Free. So if you've been listening, maybe take a listen to that. And as we end, if you could describe In one word.
Uh-oh.
I know. In one word, how you feel relating to the hope, the joy, and what's to come in the future as we continue to come together. One word or a sentence. How do you feel about how that future looks as we continue to come together as a community?
I have 4 words. It's up to us.
It is. Thank you so much, Mary.
Thank you
for being on. I hope to have you on again. I was gonna say. Thank you so much for listening to Collaboraction Radio. My name is Beverly, and I hope you're having a safe Saturday, a lovely Saturday, and we hope to see you at the vigil tomorrow. Please join us in community, along with the Lieutenant Governor, I believe, will be present, and the Mayor of Highland Park, as well as many other just people like you and me who are coming together to be in community and empathize. Have an amazing week. We'll see you next Saturday right here, 4 p.m. WCPT. And say hi. I tagged Mary's account on our Instagram. You have mine. Let us know what you're thinking. Hope to see you soon.
The preceding program, Collaboraction Radio, was sponsored by Collaboraction, and to the extent applicable, their guests. The views and opinions expressed therein do not necessarily reflect those of Heartland Signal, LLC, or its management.
NBC News Radio, I'm Chris Coraggio.
Donald Trump is settling his defamation lawsuit with ABC News and anchor George Stephanopoulos. Trump filed the suit back in March after Stephanopoulos said in an interview that a jury found Trump liable for rape in the case of E. Jean Carroll. The jury found Trump liable for sexual abuse under New York law, but not rape. New court documents